House Speaker Mike Johnson just announcing unprecedented access to Capitol Police footage from January 6th. More than 40,000 hours of footage now available to the public. NTD's Moylan of is bringing us more details from the Capitol. Melina, is there any information out just yet where to find and watch some of this footage?
Yeah, Steve, so the public can start viewing this footage as soon as today on the House Administration Committee's website. They can also view this in person at the committee's office here in Washington, D.C., though they will have to wait until Monday for those in-person viewings. Now, the Speaker is eager to get this information out. He actually posted the link to the House Administration's website with the information on where to see this footage on his Twitter account when he announced that he was releasing this footage. And he said the goal here is transparency. He said it's to restore trust in Congress for the American people. Now, the timing of this footage release is notable because it is at a time when 2 January 6th related cases have actually reached the Supreme Court. The court has set a December 1st conference date to decide whether or not they'll accept the appeals. And if they do, it will be the first time, Steve, that the Supreme Court is considering January 6th related cases.
Yeah, this is quite significant, Melina. The January 6th Select Committee coming under fire for editing and taking things out of context, so the public's going to be able to have a chance to view and take a look themselves. I do want to switch gears here for a moment and talk to you about another pressing issue on Capitol Hill. That is the question about Republican Congressman George Santos potentially being booted from his seat. The latest development here is that Republican chairman, a notable figure, has moved to expel Santos. Give us some insights into how lawmakers are reacting and how this might actually turn out.
Well, Steve, remember, this is the third effort to try to expel Republican Congressman George Santos, and it comes at a time when lawmakers seem to change their minds on the issue. Before, those attempts failed because there were lawmakers, a significant number of lawmakers, who protected him on the grounds of due process, but now it appears they are changing their minds. We know of at least a dozen or more lawmakers who weren't ready before, but now they say they're ready to see him go. Watch this.
Anderson, I didn't vote for his expulsion the first time that we had a vote. I changed my opinion after this. I think when we come back, you'll see that motion to expel. I think you will see more and more members voting for that, and it'll be maybe a close vote, but I think he will be expelled if he doesn't resign. I hope he resigns before we get to that point.
I am confident that a majority of the conference is going to come together after reading, if not yesterday, then today, the ethics report and send George Santos on his way.
And for this vote to be successful in the House, it does need 2/3 of a vote. That means if all Democrats vote for it, there would need to be a little over 70 Republicans voting for it, which, Steve, is a possibility because Republican leadership has hinted to members that they can vote however they like, saying that they simply just want them to do whatever is in their constituents' best interest. Now, as for how Santos is responding to all of this, well, he's tried to dismiss it as simply just an example of dirty politics in Congress. He also says he's holding a press conference to talk about the issue as soon as lawmakers come back from their Thanksgiving break at the end of the month. And what he'll say at that time is going to be really interesting. I mean, will he actually resign if it's clear that the numbers are against him at that time? He said that he would continue to carry out his term, although that may change under this growing pressure. Steve?
NTD's Moylan of great reporting from the Capitol. Thank you, Melina. And 3 GOP presidential candidates today convening in Iowa. Timing is crucial here, less than 2 months before the Iowa caucuses. NTD's R-N.Y brings you more on the situation in the Hawkeye State.
Presidential candidates Vivek Ramaswamy, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley meeting in Iowa on Friday. This as the state is getting ready to hold its Republican caucuses in January. Former President Trump was invited as well, but declined. The event is being organized by a religious organization called Family Leader. Every Republican candidate the organization endorsed since 2008 ended up winning the Iowa caucuses. The organization's CEO will most likely not endorse Trump, as he and the former president haven't been getting along for years now. However, this might not affect Trump too much. He's still the favorite candidate among Republican Iowa caucus members, as this poll conducted by Iowa State University found this week. Candidates are now seemingly investing big in the Hawkeye State, such as Vivek Ramaswamy, who's setting up a new base.
Stayed last night in my new apartment in Iowa, where we've been for the last couple of weeks.
DeSantis, Haley, and Ramaswamy all campaigned in Iowa this week. Now, what's interesting to note here is that the organizers of Friday's event had to clarify this is not a debate, but a friendly discussion. This explanation came after the Republican National Committee sent out 2 separate letters, reminding candidates that they're not allowed to participate in debates not organized by the RNC. And on a national level, a new poll shows President Biden trailing behind 3 Republicans. A new Marquette Law School poll found that Trump, Haley, and DeSantis would all win against Biden in a hypothetical 2024 matchup. The poll was conducted earlier this month, interviewing over 850 voters nationwide. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
President Biden meeting with the Mexican president to close out the APEC summit out in San Francisco. That's as a growing illegal immigrant crisis is forcing New York City to cut funding for police. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more from the APEC summit.
Wrapping up his week at the APEC summit, President Biden had a face-to-face meeting with Mexican President López Obrador, the two vowing to work together to counter the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. and counter illegal immigration.
We're working side by side to combat arms trafficking, to tackle organized crime, and to address the opioid epidemic, and including fentanyl.
Nearly all chemicals needed to make fentanyl come from China. The drugs are then mass-produced in Mexico and then trafficked into the United States. And President López Obrador says he's aware of the damage that fentanyl is doing to American youth. In the last year alone, more than 100,000 Americans died of drug overdoses, with the majority of them attributed to fentanyl. And all this is as the arrest of illegal immigrants on the southern border rose to nearly 220,000 in just September. That's putting massive pressure on major U.S. cities like New York City, where Mayor Eric Adams this week announced that he's slashing funding for schools, libraries, and the police because dealing with illegal immigrants in New York City is just costing the city way too much. President Biden, meanwhile, stresses that the administration is going to take a balanced approach to immigration.
So it includes enforcing our borders, increasing reparations, and opening a historic number of legal pathways for migrants.
The Biden administration is expected to strengthen its public messaging when it comes to the border. That's especially as polling continues to show that a majority of Americans disapprove of Biden's handling of the border situation. Back to you.
As the latest National Defense Authorization Act moves forward in Congress, we're taking a look at the need to fund America's military capabilities. We sat down with Congressman James Moylan, representing the territory of Guam, to discuss the importance of funding missile defense systems on America's Pacific frontier. Congressman James Moylan, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Half a day, Steve, from our beautiful island of Guam, where America's Day begins. I'm glad to be here.
It's a very important U.S. territory, isn't it? I just wanted to, get your thoughts. President Biden wrapping up his meeting with leader Xi Jinping of China. With regard to that, Guam geographically sits closer to China than it does to the U.S. mainland. So as a representative of Guam, what do you want to see coming out of these meetings moving forward in terms of solidifying the safety of your island?
We are very close to China. We are the most western property or territory of the United States. We're about 1,900 miles, give or take, to China. From China, then we also have Taiwan, about 1,700 miles. Philippines and Japan, even closer. The president's involvement in conversation with China is important to us. We, of course, want to maintain peace in the region, in our Indo-PACOM area, and how we do that is through diplomacy. What I want to see come out of that is that reduce the possibility of any war, of course. And while I'm working with, as Congress and the House Armed Services Committee, the importance for me being there is to ensure through our National Defense Authorization Act that we have the capabilities of deterring war through the strength of our nation with our armed forces. So President Biden's attempt in conversation with the China's leader, that's great. Now I want to make sure with the defense of our island, showing the defense of our nation, that we are prepared to defend for any aggressors.
And speaking of those capabilities, the chairman of the Select Committee on the CCP, Mike Gallagher, he's highlighting some concerns, specifically saying, despite its strategic importance, Guam remains highly vulnerable to an increasingly sophisticated network of missiles from the People's Republic of China. So this goes along to what you're saying. How concerning is this to you?
Very concerned. And I want to thank Congressman Mike Gallagher, head of chairman of the Chinese subcommittee, for addressing that with the Secretary of the Army. We can do so much in ensuring that we can get authorization and appropriations, money for the island in the defense of our nation and the defense for Guam. But if we're not keeping up with what we're supposed to be getting done, in this case the missile defense, the 360-degree missile defense, which is necessary for our Indo-PACOM region, with the Admiral's focus on how to properly defend the island, if we're not keeping up to date, if we're not keeping up because of, let's say, production of what needs to be done, then we have a problem. And with Congressman Gallagher's a letter addressed to the Secretary of the Army, we need to fill in those gaps. My role, and I work very closely with Congressman Gallagher as well, my role is to ensure we have the budget capability to get this missile defense system for the island. 360-degree missile defense system. Right now we have some capability, but it's not what we need to defend against the Communist Chinese Party. And within the NDA budget, we have $147 million that we're wanting to get approved. We're close now. As you can see, Congress is moving forward with the appropriation measures and getting that into Congress, getting it into conference, and then getting that into law is what we really need. In the meantime, like Congressman Gallagher is saying, let's do something right away. We have capabilities in Ukraine that maybe we can use on Guam. We have other friendly nations that could assist us as well. We just can't wait around because of things are not ready at this point. What are we going to do in the meantime? So it's very important to me. I'm glad Congressman Gallagher is working on that, and I'm hoping he can get to visit Guam as well, so we can keep that attention in the 118th Congress pointed in the Indo-PACOM area, most strategic location being Guam as a territory of the United States of America.
Congressman James Moylan, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
You're very welcome, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.